Make sure you got your pen and paper ready for this one, lads, because I'm going to take you into the world of the professional gambler as me and you break down together every single fight on the Manel Kape versus Brandon Royval last UFC fight card of the year. It's littered with banger fights from top to bottom. Like I said, Manel Kape taking on Brandon Royval is one of the best fights in the entire flyweight division. We got a sneaky middleweight matchup in there. Cesar Almeida taking on the brother of Oleksiejczuk in Cezary. Oleksiejczuk. Joanderson Brito versus Melsik Baghdasaryan is not to be slept on. And last but most certainly not least, we got my boy Kevin Vallejos going in there taking on Giga Chikadze. This is the last breakdown show of the entire year, boys, but not the last YouTube video I'm putting out of the year. More on that later. But what a year it has been. 2025 has been the greatest year of my life to some degree and the greatest betting year of my life, and hopefully every single person in my audience has made insane cheddar with the cash after cash after cash I've been giving out for free on this YouTube channel week after week. We smashed more than 200 units of profit in my VIP elite zone, which I'm so proud about. We destroyed long shot parlays and long shot prop bets consistently week after week on this show and on Parlay Madness, and we had weeks where Vegas looked genuinely confused. I appreciate every single one of you, whether you tailed every single bet I gave out or just watched along for the ride. You made this year unreal, and I'm gonna go out with a bang. So run the intro for the last time in 2025, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to another edition of the show, lads. I can't wait to break this card down with you. There's only 12 fights on this card, so we're going to run through this fight card pretty quick. I have some strong takes as always, and I'm going to give you them. For the last time of the year, I'm going to ask you to please go down and click the subscribe button. I checked my analytics. Only 50% of the viewers of my channel actually subscribe. If we get the other 50%, I'm going to have 40,000 subscribers. And by the way, boys, we're hitting 100,000 subscribers in 2026. You better believe that. I know you already do anyway, apart from maybe the 1 or 2 haters. But the 18,000 supporters, you know we're going to hit 100,000 next week, and you're going to be along for the ride. So I very much appreciate that. Click subscribe, it's free, and let's hit 100K next year. Boys, I'm trying to hit 20K this year, and I genuinely think we can do it. Once I hit 20K, I'm going to do a massive giveaway. And that giveaway is going to be given in my next video, right? Which is going to go out in 2025 after the Manel Kape versus Brandon Royval card. That video is going to be a year in review. That video is going to be the lucrative MMA awards show. I'm going to be giving out awards for the best knockout of the night, the best bet of the year, the worst bet of the year, my worst bet of the year, the worst robbery of the year, the worst referee mistake of the year. I'm still scripting that entire show. I'm going to give out a lot of awards, good and bad, boys. So if you have any specific awards that you want me to give out, then let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to check it after this video goes out, and I'm going to make that show, boys. So make sure you're subscribed and tuned in for that video. It's going to be a big one, and I'm going to do a giveaway in that video, maybe more than one giveaway. But boys, without further ado, let's get into this show, because that's what you're here for. And in the main event of the evening, we have Manel Kape taking on Brandon Royval in a UFC flyweight banger matchup. We have Manel Kape coming into this fight with a record of 21 wins, 7 losses for Star Boy. Brandon Royval, on the other hand, 17 wins with 8 losses.
So boys, unfortunately, there is no betting odds out for this card yet, because I'm recording it so early for you guys, so you guys get an early video. It's a bit annoying because it's a betting show, but for this one, we're going to do something a little bit fun, which is I'm going to give you my lucrative projected odds for every single fight on the card. So these are the odds that I believe we will see once the bookies release odds for the fights and once the market settles. After a day or two, after the odds are released, because who knows what these bookmakers are going to open the odds at. They always open the odds at some crazy lines. But after a couple of days, these lines will settle, and that's what I'm going to be giving you in my lucrative projected odds. I'll basically be predicting what the odds will be, so we'll see how close I get. So the lucrative projected odds for this one is going to be Manel Kape as a minus 250 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Brandon Royval coming back at plus 200.
So first things first, boys, this is a rebooking. So this fight was supposed to take place earlier in the year, and Manel Kape had a fractured foot, so he had to withdraw from that fight. And then that made way for the Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van fight, which was one of the greatest fights of the year. And maybe it's going to be in my award show later this year. I'm sure it's going to be nominated. If it doesn't win the award for fight of the year, it will be nominated, right? So I was very happy that Manel Kape injured his foot to some degree. Obviously, I'm happy that he's not injured anymore because we're getting this banger. At the end of the day, man, I won't say any Manel Kape fight, although you could argue that any Brandon Royval fight is a banger, you know? So the Joshua Van fight was a banger, and I'm sure this is going to be no different. And the reason is because raw dog Brandon Royval puts himself in danger. If you go back and look at that Joshua Van fight, and we'll just get straight into it, lads. If you go back and look at that fight, you will see that Brandon Royval puts his foot on the gas basically from minute one. Even though he has taken hellacious punishment and big boxing combinations, he literally gets hit and then puts pressure on Joshua Van and then hurts him back consistently. The times when Brandon Royval had the most success was after he got clocked with boxing combinations. He stepped forward and put the pace and pressure on. So it's just a testament to the will to win from Brandon Royval, and also a testament to his nickname, Raw Dog. You know, he's a dog. He's a raw dog. He's going to go through there, bite down on the mouthpiece, and try and get you out of there. Now, I don't think that's a great stylistic to have against someone like Manel Kape, who is extremely smooth. And we speak about smooth. Have a look at this sparring footage of Manel Kape, which is just 20 weeks old now. He is looking absolutely on form in this sparring session. Now, I believe this was before the Brandon Royval pullout, but man, he looks good in that sparring footage, and he always looks like that when he gets in his flow in the fight. Now, the issue with Manel Kape is sometimes he doesn't reach that flow. The issue with Manel Kape is maybe he reaches the flow for a round, and then he kind of takes his foot off the gas. We see his UFC debut against Alejandro Pantoja, the current champion now, and Manel Kape's just not really getting into his flow. He's not putting his foot on the gas. We see his fight against Matheus Nicolau, and again, outside of round two, he's not really getting in his flow. He's kind of being taken down. He's being out-volumed, out-jabbed, and we do see that as a consistent theme in his fights, where he doesn't put the pace and pressure on. He's almost the opposite to Brandon Royval to some degree. He picks his shots. You know, he's a sniper. He plays the game slowly. Brandon Royval is going to walk in your face and just create openings and opportunities. And that makes for a great stylistic clash. Now, I think because Manel Kape is fighting someone who will press forward, who knows no other way, I think it's going to play into the hands of Manel Kape. If you want to beat Manel Kape, in my opinion, for the most part, you need to be a little bit strategic like him, almost even a little bit low volume like him. Now, obviously you have to up the volume, because if you are low volume, then he's going to pick you apart from range. But what I mean by that is you can't just recklessly walk forward and throw volume, because if you do that, you're going to walk onto something big, as we've seen multiple times throughout his entire career now, right? You kind of need to play the game that he plays, which is circle on the outside, try and get in a rhythm, pick your shots, and basically shoot takedowns at the right times in order to get grappling success on him, like Muhammad Mokaev did, still in a very close fight. We won't go into that fight. I don't think there's too much in that fight that is relevant to this fight, right? And I mean, I could break down every single one of their fights here, but I think what I'm going to end up saying is the way I see this fight playing out is kind of what I've alluded to so far, boys, in which Brandon Royval's style is going to work in the favor of someone like Manel Kape. You know, he's going to walk on and create openings for himself that are eventually going to lead him to get dropped and hurt badly by the much better boxing, much better timing, and much more powerful striking of Manel Kape. You know, not only is Manel Kape more powerful, better timing, better striker in general, but he's also the most dynamic fighter that Brandon Royval has ever fought before. So just as Brandon Royval can hit you with a flying knee and a spinning back elbow, so can Manel Kape, you know, so he doesn't even have the dynamicism advantage really here. Maybe slightly, but not really. I mean, in his fight against Joshua Van, something that he had an advantage in maybe is that he could, even though he didn't display it in that fight, is that he could come out of a spinning elbow, a spinning back fist, a flying knee. But Manel Kape can kind of match him on that. But he can also match the pinpoint accuracy of someone like Joshua Van to some degree. This is an even harder matchup than Joshua Van. And although that fight was close to a 50-50 fight between Royval and Van was always just slightly a step ahead. And I just feel like this is an even worse matchup for Brandon Royval. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to pick Manel Kape in this fight. I'm going to pick Manel Kape fairly confidently in this fight. I think he lands a knockdown blow in this fight. Does he land a knockout blow? Well, that's a little bit harder to predict. I can predict the shot landing. I can predict the knockdown. But to predict the actual knockout against someone like Brandon Royval, who's never been knocked out, outside of a shoulder injury, dislocation against Brandon Moreno back in the day, it's a tough one to do. So I'm not going to outright do it, but I don't need to. I'm going to outright predict Manel Kape to win this fight confidently once he gets his rhythm and flow going, which I believe will start to happen in about round 2. So Manel Kape is the official pick here, boys. I'll say that he hurts Brandon Royval maybe multiple times. As for the knockout, I'm not sure. But yeah, Manel Kape is the official pick.
Boys, for the next fight of the night, we got Giga taking on Kevin Vallejos. Giga coming into this fight with a record of 15 wins, 5 losses. Kevin Vallejos, on the other hand, 16 wins with only 1 loss to one of the best fighters in the world, Gene Silva. So a very, very interesting prospect in Kevin Vallejos. For the lucrative projected odds, I'm going to put Kevin Vallejos as a minus 250 favorite with the underdog price tag on Giga coming back at plus 200. Very good fight. If you didn't know, we are fans of Kevin Vallejos on this show. We are Kevin Vallejos supporters. So there's going to be no slander against the boy Kevin. And I genuinely think he's going to go out there and prove the no slander correct, because I think he's going to put it on Giga, and I think he could be the first man to finish Giga. I'm giving you the prediction before I even give you the breakdown. I genuinely feel like Kevin can go out there and do it. And yes, I may be a little bit biased, but I always tell you my bias, but I always tell you my breakdown as well. And I'm gonna go into the breakdown now, boys. Kevin is a wrecking ball, man. You know, if I was to describe him, I'd say a wrecking ball. I was lucky enough to see him live in Las Vegas when I went to watch at the UFC Apex with my man Czar. We watched him live. We bet on him to beat Danny Silva via decision, and he did do it via decision. Danny Silva, extremely tough, great chin, the new Max Holloway, so that's why we bet on that. But I was confident in Kevin to get the win there. And he showcased out well there. You know, he showed his entire MMA arsenal. He showed that he has the grappling in his back pocket, which is going to be very smart if he uses that in this fight against Giga. I also don't think he needs to. I think his boxing and his timing is so good, and his power, that he can actually win this fight on the feet, just as David Onama had some moments on the feet against Giga, but also took him down and grapple effed him. So I feel like Kevin has multiple paths to victory here. He can take the fight down, and Giga's had issues with takedown defense his entire career, being a pure striker. Go back and look at the Jamal Emmers fight like 6-7 years ago, whenever that was, 5 years ago, and then look at the more recent fight against David Onama. He's getting grappled in both fights, and he hasn't really improved that realm of his game. And then on the feet, I think he can get cracked, and I think he can get hurt. I truly do. Edson Barbosa was having some success on the feet against him back in the day, and David Onama was rocking him on the feet at times as well, or at least landing some good shots. So I think Kevin Vallejos is a bad stylistic matchup for him. Giga's not a bitch, and calling Giga to get finished is tough because the guy's never been finished. He's so tough, and he does have a lot of skills on the feet. You know, good footwork, very good kick to the body, good liver kick, good teep. So I think he can keep Kevin at bay for, you know, the first round or so. But when the round 2, round 3 starts coming, I think Kevin's youth and athleticism and power is going to start to push Giga back, and Giga's going to get tired. Giga gets tired in almost every fight, especially if grappling is involved. So I'd kind of like to see Kevin get some grappling going early to tire him out, to then even knock him out on the feet. Yeah, I mean, I'm picking Kevin in this fight. I think he's going to go out there, and I'm going to pick a KO outright. Fuck it, man. I'm rooting for the KO. I want him to get a knockout, so I'm just going to pick it outright. Kevin Vallejos to get this window is my prediction. In the next fight on the card, we have Cesar Almeida taking on Cezary Oleksiejczuk, the brother of Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Almeida coming into this fight with a record of 7 wins, 1 loss. Oleksiejczuk, on the other hand, 16 wins and 3 losses. The lucrative projected odds for this fight is going to be Oleksiejczuk as a minus 150 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Cesar Almeida coming back at plus 120. This is a banger of a fight, boys. I can't wait for this one. This is a very, very good fight. We got the new breed of Oleksiejczuk coming into the UFC octagon with Cezary Oleksiejczuk. I know you know his brother, Michel Oleksiejczuk. If you don't know, go and get to know. That guy has run through multiple divisions with big power on the feet. And Oleksiejczuk, his brother, honestly seems like the new and improved version of Michel. Like, he looks more refined, you know, a little bit smarter, better grappling, and just as much power and craziness. He's currently over there at Fighting Nerds Gym with his brother, which I think is a great move for both of them. I know that the Fighting Nerds can give Oleksiejczuk a more well-rounded game. I know that they can calm him down a little bit, take some of that rawness out of his game or in his game, mix it around and make him a little bit more stable. You know, I'm actually excited to see the growth of Oleksiejczuk. At only 25 years of age, he has a lot of growing to do. He's not a finished product like you could argue his brother is, but he can learn from his brother's mistakes, specifically in the grappling. We're going to touch on the grappling soon, and actually do good things in the division. I think he's a good fighter, man. He's tenacious. He's got great cardio, big power, as we've seen in the Dana White's Contender Series fight that he had, where he finished his opponent in like 20 seconds, and a lot of his career as well. Now, he has the same issue as his brother, where he loses via takedowns for the most part. You know, you go back and look at the Rasulov fight, to which he fought valiantly in that fight against a good fighter, a good wrestler, a good grappler, but he did get taken down multiple times in that fight. He did lose that fight via grappling. He did come back late in that fight and was putting the pace and pressure on in round 3, and I like to see that, but he still did lose that fight via grappling. You go back and look at his decision win against Mansour Abduzerkov, and in that fight, he is losing a lot of the positions in the grappling. You know, he ends up winning the fight. But like I said, the grappling is really where you see his holes. Now, I don't think he has as many holes as his brother. And he obviously is a lot younger, right? He's only 25. In that fight there that I referenced, Mansour fight, and even in the fight which he did lose against Rasulov, he's like 22, 23 years old. And he's still competing well in those fights. So I'm excited to see his growth. I'm not going to hold too much against him that he has lost some positions and even a fight because of the grappling. But we will acknowledge that is his weak point at the moment. Now, good thing for him, he's taken on Cesar Almeida. This guy is a pure striker. Now, I know if you watch his Dana White's Contender Series fight against Lucas Fernando, you might not believe it. You know, he won a lot of that fight via grappling, but he is a pure striker. This guy's a very elite, old school kickboxer. Beautiful kickboxer to some degree, you know, very good timing, very patient, crazy power, crazy physicality in general, and he can switch your lights off within an instant. You have to be careful anytime you fight Cesar Almeida. Roman Kopylov is a pure striker, as we know, and he didn't want none of the striking against Cesar Almeida. Now, I will say it's kind of alarming that he was able to get grappled by a pure striker in Roman Kopylov, so that's a negative on Cesar Almeida, but it's also a positive that Kopylov did not want any of the striking against him. At least if not a positive, it's an acknowledgement of how good a striker he actually is. Now, this is a great fight because I'm not really going to outright pick anyone against Cesar Almeida if it's on the feet. So I kind of feel like Oleksiejczuk needs to get a couple of takedowns or some control time in this fight. And that's not really his game. He kind of goes out there to stand and mag. Now, I do think he can have success doing that. I think he can actually hurt Cesar Almeida. If we look back at Cesar Almeida's last fight, against Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, he was dropped in that fight with a straight hand. Now, there's no shame in that. Al-Hassan hurts everyone, and it wasn't even a big knockdown. It was kind of like a flash knockdown, which says a lot about the durability of Cesar Almeida. Later on in that fight, he was able to stand up underneath Razak Al-Hassan, which goes heavily talking about his physicality. MMA is kind of crazy sometimes, boys, because like Kopylov could hold him down with ease at times, but then Razak Al-Hassan couldn't. And you would think as Al-Hassan's just way more stronger and powerful than Kopylov in the grappling, but MMA is just kind of crazy. It is what it is. It was like different scenarios there. I don't think he was expecting it there, whereas I do think he was expecting it with Al-Hassan. I also think that Kopylov kind of not only caught him off guard, but had him in specific good positions like full guard and stuff like that. But anyway, in that fight, he was able to stand back up to his feet and take a couple more blows from Razak Al-Hassan, who was winging blows and not really having any semblance of defense up against the cage. And he ultimately got caught with a beautiful left hook. You know, Cesar Almeida threw the right hand, missed the right hand, came back with a left hook and knocked him unconscious, man. And Cesar Almeida can do that to you. He can knock you out. You know, I don't care who you are. So Oleksiejczuk, who likes to go out there and swing and find out who hits harder, needs to watch his P's and Q's and be careful here, because he can find himself on the end of a knockout blow and definitely a knockdown blow against someone as powerful as Cesar Almeida. So I think Oleksiejczuk needs to go in there with some of the fighting nerd spirit. use his smarts, understand that he's fighting a kickboxer who doesn't really have great grappling, so he needs to shoot some takedowns, take him down, burn some clock time, land some big shots on the feet as well for sure, because that is his game. You never want to shy away from your game, but mix in the takedowns and control when things get a little bit iffy, and just show who's the better mixed martial artist in the MMA contest, which I do believe is Oleksiejczuk, and for that reason I will be picking not Michel Oleksiejczuk, but Cezary Oleksiejczuk to get this win. But it is a very good fight, and I am intrigued to see it. The next fight on the card, we have Morgan Charriere taking on Melquizael Costa. So Charriere coming into this fight, 21 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw. Costa, on the other hand, 24 wins with 7 losses. So both guys having a very extensive MMA record. Both guys took a lot of L's, and both guys very similar matchup in that the lucrative projected odds are going to be -110 apiece. So the first pick'em, the first -110 apiece odds is going to be in this fight. And the reason is, boys, because I just think it's a close fight. I think it's a very close fight. It's tough for me to get a good read on it. I'm not going to come out here and say that I have a strong prediction on how the fight's going to go. I'm going to go in depth on a couple of things about the fight, but it will be a quick breakdown here. Boys, this is such a hard fight to call, man. One thing that stands out to me is that Morgan Charriere never puts a full game together. You know, I don't think that he fights to the best of his ability. I think he's got a lot of raw skills, raw athleticism, God-given talent on top of all of that. But I just feel like he's less than the sum of his parts, and he doesn't fight to the best of his ability. We go back and look at that Nate Landwehr fight, and at the end of the day, he should have been doing better in that fight. Now, I bet on Nate Landwehr because he's so gritty, because he was plus 200, and I know he could give Charriere a run for his money. But I was also banking into the fact that Charriere never really puts a good 15-minute performance together, so I felt that that was based into my capping. If he does put a good 15-minute game plan together, or if he does fight to the best of his ability, he smashes Landwehr, in my opinion. But I know that that's not the type of fighter we're getting, so then I bet against him. And I was looking like a genius up until round 3, and he landed that killer blow. But even in that fight, I think I was proved right to saying that his fight IQ is not all there, his game planning is not all there, he makes mistakes there in the octagon and outside of the octagon. He isn't even in the USA yet, so he's flying all the way over from France. He was on vacation after his last fight, he went on vacation, missed some training, missed UFC Paris, and he's still in Paris right now. He's still in France right now. He hasn't flown over to where he's going to be fighting, which I think you should be out there at least 2-3 weeks before, which we are in now, and he's not there, because you need to adapt to jet lag and stuff like that. You know, at the end of the day, this guy's fought all over the world, so, you know, he's going to do what he's going to do, but my personal opinion, would have liked to see him out there a little bit earlier, and it's kind of just his entire career. My personal opinion, he should have done a few different things in most of his fights, even in the octagon, you know, so some of these fights, he just lets go away from him. Like, I feel like the Landwehr fight was he was on his way to losing that fight, and that was a very winnable fight for him. Even the Nathaniel Wood fight, like, that's a winnable fight for him. Even the fight against who's the guy that he lost a split decision to? I didn't actually watch it in preparation for this fight. You know exactly who I'm talking about, the guy who broke Jack Jenkins' arm. I just bet against him the other day. Pat Sabatini crushed him. Chepe Mariscal. In that fight, he lost via split decision. That's a winnable fight, you know? So, yeah, I don't know, man. Costa, on the other hand, he's a weird fighter as well. I can't get a great read on him. Good kicker. You know, I think he's the better kicker here for sure. Pure grappler, I also would pick Costa. You know, he's pretty good from the back position, but I think he's probably the worst wrestler here. I think he's probably less physical here, and he's definitely the worst boxer. So, like, big advantages on the Costa side, or not big, clear advantages on the Costa side, clear advantages on the Charriere side. Who the F knows? I kind of trust Costa to make better decisions in the octagon, but then he has also made bad ones. So like I said, pick and fight for me, boys. 50-50. Pick your poison. I will say that Charriere gets it done, just because I think that he can probably dictate where the fight takes place. So if he goes to the grappling, I think he can win there. And if he doesn't choose to go to the grappling, I also think he has more power and can get big moments and win on the feet. So I'll pick him because of that. But this fight could go either way, boys. It's not a confident one from me. In the next fight on the card, we have Kennedy and Nzechukwu taking on Marcus Buchecha. Kennedy coming into this fight with a record of 14 wins, 6 losses. Buchecha, on the other hand, smallest record on the entire card, almost at 5 wins with only 2 losses. His last fight in the UFC was his UFC debut, and he did lose that fight to Martin Buday, who then got cut after the fight, but then Buchecha's still in the octagon. Sometimes some strange decisions from the UFC, but who am I to run the best organization in the world? Let them do what they do. They've done a good job so far. So the lucrative projected odds for this fight is going to be Kennedy and Nzechukwu, a minus 150 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Marcus Buchecha coming back at plus 120. Now, the projected odds are tough for this one because both fighters laid an egg in their last fight. Kennedy going out there, getting submitted via the heel hook by Walter Walker, and Marcus Buchecha going out there as a minus 250 favorite and losing, right? Which is not a good look either. One thing I want to say about Buchecha's last fight is he was making his UFC debut, right? Which is always tough. As I mentioned earlier, when you're making your UFC debut, you oftentimes perform 10% worse than you actually are. And two, he was fighting a really, really big heavyweight in Martin Buday, and they look like two different weight classes apart. Now, in relation to this fight, Kennedy used to be a light heavyweight fighter. He was a former light heavyweight, and now he's moved up to the heavyweight division. So I don't think that size discrepancy, which really lost Buchecha the last fight, is going to be here in this fight. Buchecha surviving to decision in his last fight actually says a lot about him. I think he's got good heart, decent cardio, although he gassed out after round one, like he pushes through well. And so I think he's going to have a lot more of a chance to win this fight than he did that fight. But I suspect that the odds are going to be much better for this fight than they was for that fight. And that's where we can get an edge on the MMA markets. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Buchecha will be a bigger favorite this time at minus 300. But I highly doubt it, boys. You know, recency bias is a real thing. And although Walter Walker ripped off Kennedy's heel recently, we also recently remember Buchecha losing his debut, and he's not proven in the UFC, right? So I do think Buchecha is going to come in at a worse price tag or a better price tag than he did in his debut, and I think he can have I think he can have success here. I mean, Kennedy has had issues in the wrestling and grappling for his entire career. Buchecha is an elite grappler. I know we didn't really see it in his last fight, because I didn't say he's an elite wrestler, but if he does get you down, he is good on the ground. Now, of course, again, we didn't see it in his last fight. We didn't see that great grappling skill set. But Buday's a massive guy, man, and he was gassed out. At the times, he did have some success in the grappling. So I think that if he takes Kennedy down here, he could just dominate him from top position, submit him very early. It could be like a submission in the first minute here. I think that's the skills that Buchecha possesses. I really do. And we've seen Kennedy submitting multiple times in the UFC now. So why can't it happen again? Look, at the end of the day, man, Kennedy is way more proven. He's a much better striker, and he's going to land some devastating blows to Marcus Buchecha, like teeps to the face, teeps to the body, elbows in close and stuff like that. But if Buchecha is able to get the takedowns and get his game going, the submission could come very, very close. And he has some good ground and pound as well. So yeah, very interesting fight to me. I definitely think as the fight goes on, it favors Kennedy a little bit more. But I'm actually going to come out and pick Marcus Buchecha here. I just feel like the grappling upside is too much for me to ignore. And I think now getting your UFC debut out the way, you're going to be able to showcase your skill set a little bit better, to which I think he will do. So not an easy pick, maybe be a bit of a controversial one, I don't know. But I will pick Marcus Buchecha to win this fight, and I'll pick him to win it via submission. All right, boys, now it's my favorite part of the show, this time where I give you a chance to join my private VIP group, the Lucrative Elite Zone. The Lucrative Elite Zone is where I help you cash heavy, heavy amounts of units with me. If you don't know what a unit is, you don't know what professional gambling is, you can Google it. I don't want to waste time saying it in this show, but it's basically a unit of measurement that we use to earn you a fuck ton. So boys, we're up over 200 units in 2025. Everybody in the Elite Zone is literally sending me messages that are crazy, boys. I've paid for people's hospital bills, weddings, etc., etc. And that's what everybody is saying in the Lucrative Elite Zone. So I'm giving you a chance to win for free, boys. All you need to do is leave a comment down below, a good comment. And in next week's show, which is the end of the year show, the award show, I'm going to give out some memberships for the Lucrative Elite Zone to somebody who leaves a comment down below. So make sure you do it, and you'll be placed into next week's draw. If you don't win, don't worry. You can click the link in the below and still get my picks for this last card of the year. One of the biggest cards of the year. We're going to have a lot of bets on this card, so come in, join the Elite Zone, and cash big with me. But for now, I'm going to take everyone's comment from last week, put it on this board here, spin the Wheel of Fortune right now, and whoever it lands on, you just won 1 month. So congratulations. All right, boys, it's slowing down now. There we go, lads. Mad Martigan. You have won 1 month free to lucrative Elite Zone. Check the description down below to claim your prize. Congratulations. If you didn't win, all you need to do is click down below and you can still sign up and cash big as a member of the Elite Zone. I will see you in the VIP group chat shortly. Make sure you introduce yourself when you enter. All right, next fight on the card, lads. We have Amanda Lemos taking on Gillian Robertson. Amanda Lemos coming into this fight with a record of 15 wins, 5 losses and 1 draw. Gillian Robertson, on the other hand, 16 wins with 8 losses. The lucrative projected odds for this fight is going to be Gillian Robertson as a -175 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Amanda Lemos coming back at +140. So boys, if you've been around and listening to my content long enough, then you will know Amanda Lemos was one of the original troops in the lucrative gang. You know, she was GWOAT. Back in the day, I called her run all the way up until the title shot. I said this girl is a solid fighter and she's probably going to fight for the title, be top 5 one day, and she went on to do it. So she's fulfilled that. She's now 38 years old on the tail end of her career, but still performing pretty well, if you ask me. Gillian Robertson, on the other hand, she may fight for a title in the near future. Since moving down in weight, I believe it's been a great move for her. And outside of that Tabatha Ricci fight, she's basically been flawless and actually finished some pretty high-level girls, for example, Marina Rodriguez in her last fight. That's a good scalp to have on your record. So, boys, something that's very important that I want to tell you and let you guys know for this one is that this is a replacement fight. So Gillian Robertson was actually supposed to be fighting Yasmin Lucindo, Amanda Lemos' little sister, if you know, you know. And Lucindo had to pull out with an injury, and so Amanda Lemos took that fight on short notice and stepping in now as a replacement for Yasmin Lucindo. Now, this fight was only announced 4 weeks ago, so while Gillian Robertson has had a full camp for this fight, we cannot say the same for our opponent, Amanda Lemos. Will that affect the fight? Of course, maybe to some degree it will. I don't think it's going to affect the fight too much because I know for a fact Amanda Lemos is a consummate professional. I know she's been out there in Brazil training almost every single day, even when she doesn't have a fight. She is not the type, guys, to, you know, go out there partying. She is not the type to slack heavily on her diet. She is not the type to stop training and take a break or take holiday. This girl is in love with training. MMA is her life. I know that for a fact, following her for a long time now on social media and in the UFC for the last 5 years. So because she's been training every day, I don't have as many worries as I would of a different UFC fighter that she's not going to be ready coming into this contest. You know, a lot of fighters, when they don't have a fight upcoming or they don't have a fight booked or they don't think they're going to fight for a while, they don't really train. You know, they slack on their diet, they slack on their training. Amanda's not that girl. You know, she's going to come in here ready, but at the end of the day, no matter how ready she is, she's never going to be as ready as she would if she had a full camp. And Gillian Robertson has had a full camp. As I mentioned, this fight has been booked for a while. She was supposed to fight Yasmin Lucindo, so she's ready. And let me tell you something now. Gillian Robertson has the same camp every single time she fights, which is, I need to take you down. Now, of course, different fighters, different opponents offer different things that she needs to work on in camp, but at the end of the day, her camps are a lot more similar than a lot of other fighters out there because she doesn't really have a plan B. You know, Gillian Robertson isn't like working heavily on her kickboxing and then doing, obviously she's working on everything, but her main thing that she does in every single fight, and if she can't do it, she loses every single fight, is, you know, pursue the grappling. So she's not going to go any different here. She's going to pursue the grappling against Amanda Lemos. And the issue with grappling is, I think, maybe even more than striking. I mean, this is a heavy debate I can go into with someone, and there's a lot of different caveats and in and outs. But what I will say is that fighting someone like Gillian Robertson, who has a very heavy grappling style, very tenacious grappling, very stubborn and relentless grappling. When you fight that style, you want to be training for it and drilling specific takedown defense scenarios consistently right up until a week before the fight or something, right? Like you want to be drilling single leg defense straight away, every day. You want to be drilling digging underhooks when a fighter pushes you up against the cage every day. You want these things to be absolute second nature to you because it's not an easy style to prepare for. And obviously, if this fight is on 4 weeks notice for Amanda, maybe 5 weeks notice max. It was announced 4 weeks ago, but you know, maybe she knew a week before us. 5 weeks notice maximum. She's not going to be as prepared as I would have liked her to be for this grappling style. You got to take about a week and a half away for the weight cut for tapering down training, right? And it only leaves us with like 2.5 weeks left that Amanda Lemos would be able to prepare specifically for Gillian Robertson. So that's not that long, you know, coming up against his grappling style. One thing I do like, so I don't like that. Well, I don't like that on the Amanda Lemos side, right? It favors Gillian Robertson. One thing I do like on the Amanda Lemos side, though, is that her very last fight was against Tatiana Suarez, who is basically another Gillian Robertson in that if she can't get her grappling going, she's not going to win the fight. You know, she is a relentless takedown artist, just like Gillian. So Amanda Lemos would have been training and drilling every single day going into that camp, and that was literally her last camp. So she can take some things from that camp into this camp. There's definitely going to be some crossover there, and that's honestly probably why she felt comfortable taking this fight on 4 weeks' notice as well. She's like, in her head, well, I mean, I fought this style in my last fight. I literally drilled 12 weeks in a row, takedown defense. I don't need a full camp for this girl. You know, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to take what I learned in that camp and bring it forward to this camp. So I do like that in a favor of Amanda Lemos. The way I see this fight playing out, boys, is the way I see every single Gillian Robertson fight playing out. And that is Gillian Robertson puts the pace and pressure on. Smart, doesn't just go in reckless, because she knows she's not a great striker with poor striking defense at times. So, you know, she waits for the right opportunity while still putting educated pressure on. And then she shoots takedown after takedown after takedown, relentless pressure. And that's what I see happening. Now, the part where it gets tricky is, do we think she's going to be able to get takedowns or not? And if she does get takedowns, is she going to finish her or not? And that's really where the fight's going to come down to. Because at the end of the day, boys, if this fight stays on the feet and Amanda Lemos is able to defend the takedowns, she's going to light Gillian Robertson up. You know, she isn't as aggressive as she once was. She isn't as fast or as physical or as powerful as she once was, Amanda Lemos, but she's a bit higher fight IQ now, in my opinion. She's a bit of a smarter fighter. So, you know, things balance out at 38 years old. She's become a bit of a veteran now, getting her own takedowns and being smart, you know, winning minutes, whereas she used to be a demolition striker, you know, and lose minutes a lot just to land that big shot. So, very intriguing fight. I think Gillian will get takedowns in this fight. You know, she shoots too many takedowns for me to say she won't. But I do think Amanda's core strength is to a very high level. I think her balance is to a very high level. And I think her takedown defense is to a decent level. I really do. And like I said, she's way stronger and more physical than Gillian, in my opinion. So she can probably take Gillian down. I don't think it will be a smart move. And Amanda Lemos has shown a bad fight IQ in her career. You go back and look at the Virna Jandiroba fight, you know, she's re-grappling with her and she ends up getting submitted with an armbar. You look at the Jessica Andrade fight, that wasn't really bad fight IQ, but she ends up getting submitted with a standing arm triangle, which are red flags to me, boys. You know, red flags to me. That tells me that you can get got, you know? Like, if we're honest, the best grapplers in the world can still get submitted with like a really tight guillotine, you know, or a rear naked choke, you know. But the best grapplers in the world are not getting submitted with standing arm triangles. They're not. And maybe they're not even getting submitted with arm bars, you know, to a lesser degree. But it tells me that Amanda Lemos can get got, you know, and Gillian Robertson has a big chance of getting Amanda Lemos got with a submission in this fight. Not only submission, but also ground and pound. Gillian Robertson is one of the only girls in women's MMA that goes out there and really puts hands and elbows on her opponents when she gets in top position. You know, there's not a lot of ground and pound artists. Kayla Harrison is up there as well, you know, and she's so dominant because of that. Even in men's MMA, you know, ground and pound in general in MMA is not, I don't want to say it's a lost art, because I don't know if it ever was around, but we still have a long way to go when it comes to ground and pound, you know? I think a lot of fighters are not very good at it. Gillian Robertson is one of the few fighters that will go to, as we've seen in the last fight against Marina Rodriguez. So I also think that's live and in play here, boys. The TKO from top position, the elbow KO, or cutting Amanda Lemos with an elbow and maybe making the doctors come in and have a look at her if she gets cut or something like that. So I have to favor Gillian Robertson heavily in the grappling, and I do eventually think she's going to get a takedown or two. And the reason I say that is because, one, Amanda Lemos will re-grapple and show poor fight IQ. So Gillian may go in for a takedown. Amanda Lemos may easily defend it, but then Amanda Lemos may shoot for a takedown herself and then get reversed. I've seen it multiple times in her career. You know, not just one fight, multiple fights. Go back and look at the Mackenzie Dern fight. She gets herself in trouble there because she's re-grappling. She does win the fight, but it's a very close fight. She could have been finished at one point. Go back and look at the Virna Jandiroba fight. You know, she gets herself submitted because she starts to re-grapple, you know, and she gets reversed in that spot. So while she showed a little bit of a smarter approach against Tatiana Suarez in a fight that she could have won, and honestly, that fight might have to go in the lucrative MMA award show, That's going to be out after the Royval Kape fight under the bad beat section, because me and the Elite Zone played Amanda Lemos decision at plus 800 against Tatiana Suarez and her money line at plus 300. And I honestly feel like she could have won that fight on damage. You know, like maybe she actually did win that fight. Obviously, we didn't get scored for us. It is what it is. But in that fight, she did show a bit of a smarter approach. But I can't just forget everything I've seen before that, because she didn't really re-grapple that heavily in that fight. You know what I mean? It could still happen. Look, if Gillian Robertson doesn't get her takedowns consistently, you know, I think she's going to get beat up on the feet here. Amanda Lemos, very good striker, boys. She is a little bit patient. I honestly think 3-4 years ago, I'd be picking Amanda Lemos to knock out Gillian Robertson outright. But these days, like I said a bit earlier, she's a bit more patient now, which I don't think is great in this matchup, because you can dissuade Gillian if you're a bit aggressive. If you hit her hard, she starts to maybe second guess herself. If she can't take you down in the first couple of attempts, she starts to second guess herself. Like, we go back and look at the fights against JJ Aldridge and Macy Barber. You know, she seems to, I don't want to say quit, but you guys know what I mean if you watch those fights. So yeah, I think Amanda Lemos can have success, and probably would have more success a couple of years ago, but this is 2025. So my ultimate prediction will be that Gillian Robertson does get her down. And I think the grappling upside and the danger factor on the mat is too much for me to overlook in this fight. While I think that Amanda Lemos will actually show out in this fight and look pretty good early and maybe defend a takedown or two, I think eventually she's just going to get dragged to the ground. You know, Gillian has looked so much better since moving down in weight class, and she is bigger and stronger these days. And you know, in this new weight class. And I do think that eventually she gets her down. And I think we could see a 10-8 if she gets taken down. And I also think we could see a finish from ground and pound or submission. I'm kind of predicting Amanda Lemos to actually get taken down, but then reverse Gillian, because Amanda's pretty slick on the mat at times as well. But I think maybe the second takedown will be where she gets finished, you know, and I think I am predicting a finish in this one, boys. That doesn't go to decision, maybe a good play, you know, speaking about gambling plays, because I think Amanda could finish her. Amanda could finish any woman alive, even at 38. And Gillian, I think, has big upside on the mat as well. So my official prediction, boys, will be Gillian Robertson gets this one done inside the distance with a ground and pound or submission attack on the mat. The next fight on the card, we have Joanderson Brito taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan. Joanderson Brito coming into this fight with a record of 17 wins, 5 losses with 1 draw. Melsik Baghdasaryan, on the other hand, 8 wins with 3 losses. The lucrative projected odds for this fight is going to be Joanderson Brito sitting at a minus 250 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Melsik Baghdasaryan coming back at plus 200. Now, honestly, guys, we have 2 fighters coming back off, I would say, pretty embarrassing performances from them. You know, we see Melsik getting knocked out in the first round by Gene Silva by 1 shot, and Melsik Baghdasaryan is a very good striker, you know, and he's made an entire career on being a striker and being a better striker. So to see him go out like that with a knockout blow with 1 punch, it was quite sad to see. Now, to be honest, I still state to this very day, boys, that knockout was very, what's the word, man? I don't want to say fluky, because Gene Silva's knocked out a lot of guys, but I want to say dirty from Gene Silva. You know, look, this is a wormhole that I can get into, right? Or rabbit hole I can go into. Gene Silva distracts Melsik Baghdasaryan on purpose. He points outside of the octagon. You see Melsik look outside of the octagon. He doesn't look there. Like, he's staring at Gene Silva, but he's distracted because Gene's like playing his crazy game and pointing outside, saying, look outside, look outside. And then when Melsik switches off, literally 10 seconds later, 5 seconds later, Gene punches him. Within 10 seconds after Gene shouts at him and tells him to look outside, he's unconscious on the floor, right? So I think that will add to the embarrassment. Like, he got flustered, he didn't know what was going on, and then he's knocked out. Like, it's not a good look, right? And then we go on the other hand, Joanderson Brito. This guy gets dominated by Pat Sabatini, so much so that he's just looking completely helpless on the bottom. It was a poor performance from him. You know, he got completely outed on the ground there and exposed badly. So I think these guys are going to come back in here and really want to prove a point. And I think that Joanderson Brito is going to be the one with the ability to prove that point. So, boys, this fight is fairly easy to call for me in that I just see Joanderson Brito being very durable. Basically, if you was to craft a fighter to beat Melsik Baghdasaryan, I would say, and you could only choose 2 things: elite durability and relentless grappling. And that's what Joanderson Brito does have, right? He has elite durability and relentless grappling if he wants to. He can also knock you out on the feet, which is a great thing to have, especially Melsik coming back off a knockout loss. You know, it's also a good thing to have as well. Explosive knockout artist. But Brito has the tools to smash Melsik here, man. He's very durable, so I don't think Melsik's going to knock him out. He could land a crazy head kick because he's very good at head kicks, but outside of him landing a head kick, I don't think he's going to knock Brito out, you know? And if he doesn't knock him out, there's a big disparity in the grappling here. Melsik Baghdasaryan is a kickboxer through and through. He has been grapple fucked multiple times, and he has shown all of his weakness outside of that weird Gene Silva knockout to be in the grappling. On top of that, he is gassed out heavily in every third round he's ever been in, you know, seriously gassed out badly. So what that leads itself for me to believe is that Joanderson Brito is going to be able to take him down and smash him on top position. He's done it before. He smashed Diego Lopez from top position at times, and Diego Lopez is some of the best bottom game in the sport. You know, some of the best submission attempts and reversals and sweeps from bottom. So if Brito can do that to Lopez, he can do it to Melsik Baghdasaryan. So my prediction for this fight is going to be Joanderson Brito to go out there and smash Melsik Baghdasaryan on the mat with his grappling. In the next fight of the night, we have Magny taking on Yaroslav Amosov, who's making his UFC long-awaited, to MMA hardcore fans, long-awaited UFC debut. Yaroslav Amosov coming into this fight with a stellar record, 28 wins with only 1 loss. Magny, on the other hand, 31 wins with 13 losses. The lucrative projected odds for this fight will be Yaroslav Amosov as a -300 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Magny coming back at +250. So, boys, if you are only a UFC fan or not a strong MMA fan, you may not know who this guy Yaroslav Amosov is. And you may be saying to yourself, damn, why is lucrative making this guy a -300 favorite against Magny, who just beat Jake Matthews and is a veteran of MMA with some very high-level wins on his record, like Jake Matthews, Jeff Neal. He's beat some really good guys. Well, I'm about to tell you, Yaroslav Amosov is a very good fighter. I know he did not perform well against Jason Jackson, and that is his lone loss. And a lot of people may remember that fight because he lost his title over there in Bellator, where he was running amok for many years, dominating the Bellator welterweight division with wins over people like Douglas Lima and Logan Storley. And people would have seen him get beat up, quite frankly, in that fight, beaten to a pulp and battered and knocked out in round 3. But outside of that fight, he's basically been flawless in his entire career, you know, and I don't know whether it was a bad stylistic matchup. I don't know whether he just had an off night. I kind of feel like it's a mixture of both. I do think if we see that fight again, Amosov will definitely show himself better than he did in that fight. But it is still a tough fight for him. Jason's a very strong guy, very physical, and he's a better striker, right? Amosov is a very good fighter, boys. He's primarily a grappler. Yeah, wrestler/submission artist. You know, he's a good wrestler. He's fairly relentless with it. He's very technical with it. But he's also a good striker. You know, on the feet, he has good long-range teeps. And we have seen him in fights stay on the feet and beat people up and defend their takedowns, you know? So he's not just only going to one attack, which is the grappling. He's also winning fights via striking. If we look at the Logan Storley fight, he's defending Logan Storley's takedowns and beating him up on the feet. And honestly, if Logan wasn't so tough, we may have been looking at a finish there, you know, because Amosov was really putting it on him. Good jabs, good long-range weapons, good 1-2s, and actually rocking Logan Storley a lot. And that was against a pure wrestler. And then we go and see him fight pure strikers like Curtis Millender in his last fight, and he takes him down and he submits him with ease. You know, and that fight, I think, was very important to Yaroslav Amosov because he was coming back off a brutal beatdown and loss to Jason Jackson, like I said, quite an embarrassing loss. He was a -300 favorite in that one against Jason Jackson, who was challenging for the title. No one really knew him that much, even though he was on a long win streak in Bellator. And it was a fairly highly publicized fight, and he got battered and dominated, you know, so that must have been hard for him mentally. And then he has a bit of a layoff and he comes in CFFC and he takes on Curtis Millender, who has no grappling, and Curtis Millender has been taken down and submitted on the mat more times than I've had hot dinners, you know, like, no disrespect to him, it's just a saying over here in England, but basically he's been taken down and grapple fucked a hell of a lot. And that's exactly what Amosov did to him. But I think it's an important fight to get out the way, you know, because, boys, before that Jason Jackson loss, he was 27-0. You know, he hadn't lost at all, right? He hadn't lost. So coming back after not only your first loss ever, but a knockout loss, a brutal beatdown where you looked like you shouldn't even belong in the cage with your opponent, it takes a lot to then come back mentally. It takes a lot to then come back and get a dominant win, which is what he did against Curtis Millender. Took him down 2 times, dominated him on the mat, threatened the guillotine about 6 times. It was kind of comedic, to be honest. Threatened the guillotine and Dash choke about 6 times. Eventually, you know, Curtis Millender knew he was going to do it. Everyone tries to do it to Curtis. Most people succeed. speed. Curtis was like pushing him off. And then on like the 6th attempt, he finally, and the attempts before were like half attempts, but finally, he wrapped up the guillotine. He turned it into a dash choke and he submitted Curtis. And I think that was a lot for him mentally. So he's got through that now. And now he's making his UFC debut against a veteran in Magny. Something that's very, very important in this fight, boys, is that Yaroslav Amosov is Ukrainian, right? So for his entire career, for the most part, he's done some cross training, but he's been in Ukraine, right? Training in Ukraine. And if you didn't know, for the last many, many years now, Ukraine and Russia have been at war. So he's actually from a place in Ukraine that was heavily affected by the war. It's a little place called Buchecha in Ukraine, and it got torn apart by the war. And so I think now that he has relocated, and he has relocated to America, he has left Ukraine. He's training at ATT full time. I think that's going to do wonders for his mental health because, I don't have to spell it out for you, right? He's literally not living in a war zone anymore. So his mental health is going to be dramatically improved and he can focus full time on MMA rather than worrying about anything happening to him, his family, friends, loved ones in and around the town that he was living in that, as I said, was devastated by the war there. So, I think we could see Yaroslav Amosov doing some damage in the UFC welterweight division, and I honestly think he could make a bit of a run all the way almost until the top 10 of the division. Now, we don't know his true level, but he's got some good wins on his record. Like I mentioned, Logan Storley earlier, Douglas Lima, even Roberto Soldic, he has a win over, who is a guy who knocked out Dricus du Plessis. Back in the day, they had some wars over there in KSW, for those of you who don't know. So he's got some good names on his record. And yeah, like I said, I honestly think he can reach the top 15 in the welterweight division. After that, I don't know. I don't think he could reach the top 5, but can he reach the top 10? Maybe. I think top 15 is definitely possible for him. And if he is going to reach the top 15, he has to pass the Neil Magny test, First thing I'll say, or another thing I'll say, boys, is that it's not an easy debut. They ain't just giving you some bum. Like, they're giving you Neil Magny, and this guy's a veteran. If you can't beat Neil Magny, you ain't getting into the top 15. That's kind of the MO for the UFC welterweight division. They give you the Neil Magny test. Jake Matthews start racking up a couple of wins and looking good, and they're like, you know what? We're going to give you the Neil Magny test. Carlos Prates started racking up a couple of wins. You know what? We're going to give you the Neil Magny test. Jake Matthews failed. So he has to go back in line now. Carlos passed. Michael Morales passed. And now look where he is. Look where Prates is, Mike Mallott, started racking off a couple of wins. They gave him the Neil Magny test. He lost that one, so he had to get back in line, So Neil Magny is always going to be a tough test for anyone. And I'm very interested to see this fight. I think Amosov's gonna win fairly cleanly. I think Amosov's gonna grapple fuck him, to be honest. If we go back and look at Neil Magny's career, no matter whether he's a veteran or a good test for anyone, he's always had an issue in the grappling. In his very last fight that he won via grappling, because he can go crazy in round 3 with the grappling, in his very last fight, he got submitted in round 1, or so we thought, right? It was a terrible referee mistake. And again, I'm gonna plug this new video that I've got cooking up for you guys, which you're gonna love. One of the award sections is gonna be worst referee mistakes, right? And I'm definitely going to have to put the Neil Magny versus Jake Matthews referee blunder in that award section, because that was terrible, man. I completely disagree with the way that was handled, Jake Matthews thought that he had submitted Neil Magny because the referee told him that he did it, right? So then he goes and celebrates, starts screaming, has a massive adrenaline dump, and then gets told you have to go back out there and fight, and then gets submitted later in round 3. So that was very terrible. I understand it's not fair on Neil Magny initially, but that was the mistake that was made. You can't change the mistake and then make a new mistake because it's not fair on the other guy. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, boys, I won't go too in-depth on that one, but what I'm trying to say is even in his wins, he still has issue with the grappling. And look at the Zaleski fight. Zaleski got a takedown on him. So it's like in round 1, right? And then he gasses him out. And he did the same to Jake. He got taken down, dominated in the first couple of rounds. And then, he comes back in round 3. So even in Neil Magny's wins, and even in his wins that he does with grappling, he's still getting out-grappled and dominated in the early rounds at times or in the middle rounds or wherever it is. Like, he's still having issues with the grappling even in fights that he wins. And in fights that he loses, look, Neil Magny fights everyone, so it's not, he doesn't only lose via grappling. They put him against fucking Carlos Prates, which is like execution. But he has a lot of issues with the grappling, even going back to his Michael Chiesa fight way back in the day. So, you know, the technicality in the wrestling, the calmness and patience in the striking as well leads me to believe that Yaroslav Amosov is going to pass the Neil Magny test with flying colors. I think a lot of people will be hyped up on him after the fight. I don't know if he's going to submit him. I feel like he's very live, to be honest. I feel like he's very live. I think the front headlock is going to be so live here. I mean, Neil Magny's been submitted multiple times. You know, like it's not hard to submit him. Jake Matthews basically did it. Shavkat Rakhmonov not too long ago. Gilbert Burns took him down and made him look like a white belt. I mean, this guy can be submitted. And I'm actually going to go out there and pick Yaroslav Amosov to submit him, you know, to finish what Jake Matthews started, to go out there and do what he did to Curtis Millender, which is take him down, grab his neck, and make him tap out. And that is my official prediction for this one, boys. I got Yaroslav Amosov winning this fight via submission. Boys, since it's the final show, I'm going to do something special. Final show of the year, or final breakdown show of the year. Remember, I got a award show, a year in review video coming out next week, right? But since it's the final breakdown show of the year, F it. I want to do something special for the people. I'm going to give you free, because I know you Americans moan about that, parlays for you in my free Telegram channel down below. You can join my Telegram channel down below. Just click the description, join it. It's completely free. I'll let you in. And I'm going to give you free parlays with boosted odds. We have been crushing for the entire year. And instead of giving you one parlay or two parlays, I'm going to do free for this card. We're going out with an absolute bang, boys. You can join completely for free. We're going to end the year on a bang and then go into the new year with a bang. Next year, 2026 is going to be absolutely insane. Better breakdowns, better shows, better content, better editing, more live streams, more short form on my Instagram, on my Twitter. And of course, we are going to be hunting another triple-digit unit year. If you want to join along the lucrative Elite Zone, the link is also down below. But join the Telegram, you'll get those free parlays, and I'll also give you access to the Elite Zone through that Telegram as well. In the next fight on the card, we have Alan Frye taking on Guilherme Pat. Both fighters making their UFC debut against each other this weekend. Alan Frye is coming into this fight with a record of 6 wins, 0 losses. Guilherme Pat, on the other hand, 5 wins with 0 losses. So very similar record and very similar fighters making their UFC debut at the same time against each other. The lucrative projected odds for this fight is going to be Guilherme Pat as a minus 170 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Alan Frye coming back at plus 135. Now, boys, this is a very, very weird booking, very weird fight. You know, they're both being signed directly off the regional scene, which means, you know, they don't have to go through the Ultimate Fighter. They don't have to go through Dana White's Contender Series. They're just being signed straight off the bat. Usually, the fighters that get signed straight off the bat are Yaroslav Amosov, 28 wins, 1 loss. Not Guilherme Pat, 5 wins, no losses. You know, usually they are established fighters who maybe were fighting in a regional scene which feeds the UFC, you know, like CFFC does or Cage Warriors does, LFA, you know. And I know Pat did have an LFA fight last time out, but it's not like he's had a long career at LFA. Or usually they're like high-level fighters who have fought in a good organization who is a current champion. We can't say the same, or we can't say any of those things for either of these fighters. You know, it's kind of like two random signings in my eyes. You know, these guys should have been put on the Contender Series. And when I'm going into tape, because they wasn't, you know, high-level fighters that were champions in organizations for many years, because they wasn't coming straight off like Cage Warriors or something, I expected to see something. Well, I don't know what I expected, but I kind of expected, or at least I thought I might see something special from either fighter, seeing that they kind of broke the rules and got signed unusually. But I didn't see that, boys. I done tape for these two fighters and I'm not really impressed. I mean, I can't be impressed because there's no tape out there, first of all. There's like 2 or 3 fights of them each, and a lot of them are like poor quality, recorded on a camera phone and stuff, so you can't even really see the skill level. And they're fighting complete bums. You know, they're fighting poor fighters. The only fighter of note, and this is a funny one, that any of these guys have fought is Alan Frye. In his last fight, he took on a fighter called Justin Fraser, who's 12-3. So you look at the record and Tapology, Wikicap it, and you say, all right, that's a good fighter. You know, he beat a good fighter. Let's get him into the UFC. But that guy was coming into that fight off a 6-year layoff. 6-year layoff, boys. Not only that, but he missed the heavyweight limit. He came in after a 6-year layoff, up at heavyweight, and weighed 268 pounds when the maximum limit for heavyweight is 265. So, I mean, that's not a good win at all. You know, he finished him in the first round. That's not a good win at all. Like, that's just like all these other wins where he's fighting 0-1 guys. So, yeah, I just wanted to get that disclaimer out, guys. Like, this is a weird booking. And boys, maybe these fighters are going to go on to do big things in the UFC. They might be good. I'm just saying, we don't know. The cat's not out of the bag yet. Like, I've got no idea whether these guys are good or not. Now, I will say, in terms of the eye test, one thing I did like to see is on the side of Guilherme Pat. Like, you go back and watch his tape, and this guy's moving like a middleweight up at heavyweight. He's 6'5", very tall guy. Looks like he's made out of stone. He looks the part, and he's moving very fluidly, switching stances, bouncing on his toes. We don't see this at heavyweight. So, you know, when I started to watch that fight, which was his last fight against Quiroz, the guy who probably was on the most steroids ever in MMA history, go and watch it. I mean, insane. But in that fight, after the first 30 seconds, I was like, all right, sweet. We might have something here. This might be a heavyweight contender. He's bouncing like Cyril Gane, and even the commentators call him Cyril Gane. And then he just proceeds to not impress me in that fight. You know, one thing that I really hated to see in that fight and some others is the lack of aggression from Guilherme Pat, the lack of killer instinct, the lack of finishing instinct. I mean, there was multiple times where he had his opponent bust up, looking like he didn't really want to be in there. And instead of putting the pace and pressure on him and getting him out of there, he took 2 steps back. He stepped away from his opponent. His opponent got hurt. Instead of stepping forward to then, you know, throw shots, he would step away. If that fight was in the UFC, I'm telling you now, there would be tens of thousands of people screaming that that was a fixed fight. There would be tens of thousands of people screaming that. But obviously, because it was an LFA fight, no one even fucking knows about it. No one's ever going to know about it. I think that sheds a lot of light on this match fixing stuff, where we have to realize, boys, that a lot of these fighters are not fixing fights. They're just idiots, man. They're just making poor decisions in the octagon. They've got poor killer instinct, and they just got bad fight IQ, and it is what it is. And I really saw that on the Guilherme Pat side. You know, he got a stoppage in that fight, which again was a terrible stoppage, which again, if was in the UFC, I think tens of thousands of people would be calling it a referee fixing a fight, to where I don't think he was. I think it was just a terrible stoppage, and he saw that his opponent didn't really want to continue. He looked outside of the octagon, and referee got angry and was like, I'm calling the fight off if you're saying that you don't want to fight anymore. If you're looking away, I'm just going to call the fight off. Bad stoppage though, boys. Go back and watch it if you want yourself. That fight was such a bad look, even though he won, because there was one moment up against the cage where he landed an elbow, Guilherme Pat, and I'm going in depth into his fights now because I know most of you guys would have never heard of these guys. So I want to paint like an in-depth picture. You know, this isn't a Royval or a Manel Kape who we can have a bit of fun with the breakdown. I want to go in depth, and I want to paint you a picture of who these guys really are, because you've never watched them fight before, because they've never watched in the UFC. And that's why you watch me. So I do this work for you, right? So there was a moment in Pat's last fight where he elbowed his opponent and broke his nose, right? Clear nose break immediately. His nose was plastered across the side of his face after the elbow, right? And you could tell it visibly bothered his opponent, Quiroz. Now, to be honest, he's a tough son of a gun. Like, he was fine, but he was putting it back in place. That's what I mean by bothered, right? He was putting his nose back in place. And instead of putting the pace and pressure on and saying, all right, your nose is broken, this is a finish now, I'm going to knock you out, he steps back again, as I said earlier. He takes 4 steps back. And I'm looking to myself like, what are you doing, man? Like, the knockout is right there. Anyway, that's what I saw. Very good footwork, very athletic, but somebody who, in my opinion, doesn't have that fire inside of them that you need to be a successful MMA fighter long term. He can get wins via athleticism. He has pretty good counters and some good straight shots. He has good tools. He really does. But I don't think he has that fire inside of him that lends itself to like a successful long-term UFC fighter, in my opinion. Look, can he get that fire? Yes. Can he change his style? Yes. Look at Charles Oliveira, another Brazilian who once didn't have that fire and then just magically got the fire. That happened. We all saw it. We're MMA fans. Fighters can change. Your brain can change. You can grow into a new human. So Pat can do that. But from what I've seen from him so far, a lot of tools, very athletic, good on the feet, you know, good footwork, but lacks something inside of him. Alan Frye, on the other hand, I kind of feel like he's the opposite to Pat. Like, look, he's big, he's in shape, so not the opposite on that degree, but I don't think he has the raw athleticism or the skill set or the natural gifts of someone like Pat. But what I do think he has inside of him is heart. Now, again, it's hard to say because I've only watched 3 fights of this guy and they was recorded on camera phones and bad quality, so I can't say for sure, but he seems to have a little bit more about him. You know, he seems to bite the mouthpiece. I've seen him take big shots and then throw a million shots back. You know, I've seen him take overhand rights and then just bite down on the mouthpiece and throw a lot back. And I haven't seen that from Pat. You know, I've seen Pat get cracked a couple of times and kind of just back away and tries to reset and stuff like that. So I think that Frye maybe has that fire. And so to some degree, you want to pick him. But then I just feel skill for skill, Pat's way better. So then I want to pick him. Very tough fight. Ugly fight, weird booking. One thing I want to say as well is that both fighters have fought at such a low level of competition, extremely low level. Guilherme, Pat even fought Fat Ronaldo. If you guys are into football, most of this audience is going to say soccer, so I'll say soccer even though I don't like doing it because I'm English. But yeah, if you guys like soccer, then you know who Fat Ronaldo is. He actually fought Fat Ronaldo. Nah, I'm only joking, but I mean, you know what I'm saying by that photo there. Now, Frye actually trains with Derek Brunson. So he trains at Brunson MMA and Fitness, which obviously Brunson's a good MMA fighter, but I don't think there's many high-level sparring partners in that gym. So I don't know how many good looks he's getting. Pat, on the other hand, seems like he trains in Brazil. He's friends with Cesar Almeida and actually trains with him. Obviously, Cesar's on this card, and although it's a heavyweight and middleweight, it's still good to have one of your good friends in there. And Cesar's a pretty big middleweight anyway, so they definitely have some good sparring sessions on the feet. I know that for a fact. Maybe not as much as you would like, as relative to his weight class as you would have liked, but I mean, he's going to be training with him together, cutting weight together, dieting together. Like, it's a good thing to have, you know, a fighter on the exact same card of you, who you can train with, who's your brother, etc., etc. So that'll benefit him going into this contest. Boys, I'm going to pick Pat in this contest. I just feel like he's more athletic. I think that he's a better striker from what I've seen. I think he's got better footwork, and I think like raw talent and God-given athleticism and size and stuff, I think Pat can be good. He just lacks a little something there. But man, look, who knows? Maybe his UFC, like, he's only 5-0, man. He's learning on the job to some degree. Maybe he comes in there and he has that fire. And if he has the fire, I think he's going to win clearly, to be honest. So, yeah, but I can see this fight going either way. And it's not a fight that I want to bet because we just don't know what we got here, boys. We could have 2 complete bums or 2 good fighters who go to be top 15. Like, legitimately, it could go either way, you know, based on the tape I saw. I don't think they're going to be that good. But like I said, man, Pat has something there. If he can get the mental side or the fire, the spiritual side of the game down. So, yeah, I'll go with Pat for my official prediction. The next fight on the card is Sean Sharaf taking on Stephen Asplund. Sean Sharaf coming into this fight with a record of 4 wins, 1 loss. Stephen Asplund, on the other hand, 6 wins, 1 loss. Again, a fairly low-level heavyweight fight like the last one we spoke about. The lucrative projected odds for this fight is going to be Stephen Asplund as the -250 favorite with the underdog price tag on Sean Sharaf coming back at +200. So, yeah, like I said, fairly low-level fight, boys. And I do see Stephen Asplund as the clear favorite, like I said the lucrative projected odds will be. And the reason is because I think he's a true heavyweight. I don't think Sean Sharaf is a true heavyweight, man. I mean, you go back and look at that Junior Tafa fight, and Junior Tafa's not a heavyweight either. You know, he's a light heavyweight, fighting a heavyweight, and he looks bigger than Sean Sharaf. You know, whereas you go look at the Stephen Asplund fight against the guy in Dana White's Contender Series, he looks like a true heavyweight who's fighting a light heavyweight. And I kind of feel like we're going to get that again here. I think Sean Sharaf is a light heavyweight, and I think he's fighting a real heavyweight in Stephen Asplund. And that can mean a lot because the gap between light heavyweight and heavyweight is the biggest of any weight class. It's 205 to a potential 265. A 60-pound weight difference we could see. Now, in reality, we're not going to see that because Sean Sharaf literally competed like 250 pounds against Junior Tafa, but a lot of that is excess weight, boys. I truly believe he can come in at 210, man. 205, honestly. I think he could do it. Now, obviously, it's a push. It's going to be a cut, but it's going to be a whole lifestyle change. I'm not saying he can cut, you know, water cut like 50 pounds. What I'm saying is it's a 6-month ordeal. It's an 8-month ordeal. You know, it's a Dante Johnson type thing. You know, he's got way too much excess fat. And boys, I think Sean Sharaf knows what I'm saying to be true as well, because if we look at his Instagram, he looks like he's lost a lot of weight, you know, since his fight against Junior Taffa. He looks to be in much better shape. And although he's still fighting at a weight class that I personally believe he could probably drop down from, although, as I said, it's going to be like a big lifestyle change and stuff like that, at least he has lost weight. So I am interested to see maybe his improved gas tank in this fight, improved physique in general. You can see it in his face here. You know, you can just see it in his face. He's a lot leaner than he was for that Junior Taffa fight. To add even more fuel to the fire of what I'm saying, and it's no disrespect to Sean, me saying that he's overweight and stuff. He used to be a Marine, right? So we look at this footage here from his Instagram. This is not a heavyweight guy here. I mean, yeah, Miller, maybe he was 220, 230. What I'm saying is, in UFC terms, like, this guy could fight a light heavyweight, you know, like, he was in very good shape before. So I don't know why he's moved up to heavyweight and put all this weight on. He needs to fucking drop back down a weight class, man. I truly believe that. And, you know, I think I'm vindicated in saying that based on what I've been showing you here with his own Instagram profile. Stephen Asplund, on the other hand, he's a true heavyweight. He ain't getting to light heavyweight. He needs to cut his leg off to get to light heavyweight. He's weighing in at 260 pounds in every single fight, and it's not like he looks so overweight. Yeah, he's got a bit of flab on. He's a big heavyweight lad, you know, but he does not look like overweight for his size. He looks like just a big motherfucker. And I think that's going to be the tail of the fight. You know, I just think he's too big for him. Sean Sharaf is going to go out there and try and grapple like he did against Junior Taffa, but he barely could get Junior Taffa down. And if you can't get Junior Taffa down, you ain't getting Stephen Asplund down consistently. Now, Asplund has been taken down and finished on the mat. You know, that's the only way he's lost against Denzel Freeman. But Denzel Freeman is actually a good fighter. I know he laid an egg in his last fight, kind of, which was his UFC debut, but he won that fight 30-27 clear, right? 29-28, whatever you want to say. And he's in the UFC now. And Denzel Freeman is actually not a bad fighter. He's fighting on the first fight card of the year, the first UFC card, the Paramount card, Josh Hockett, January the 24th. So Denzel Freeman is not a bad loss. You know, in that fight, he just got grapple fucked, taken down multiple times. But he showed a lot of heart in that fight. You know, he was in a rear naked choke in round one. He was able to swivel out of it and then gave up his back in round two again. Stupidly got rear naked choked because you can't keep giving your back up even if it's a heavyweight, especially against someone who's physical and athletic like Denzel Freeman. And at the end of the day, man, the athleticism difference between Denzel Freeman, who did beat Asplund, to who he's fighting now, Sean Sharaf, is crazy. You know, Sean Sharaf is a bit of a dog, you know, like, he's going to keep walking forward. The only reason he lost against Junior Taffa is because he completely gassed out, and that was short notice. So I am interested to see him in this fight come in when he's not in short notice, right? And to be honest, if you go back and look at that Taffa fight, the end of round one, he almost had a finish. And if he had 20% more gas in the tank, it would have been a round one KO from elbows, from top position, from Sean Sharaf, and that should have been a win. And he is going to be kicking himself after that fight, or he would have been. I'm sure he's got over it now, but he would have been, because that was an easy first round finish for him. He just didn't have enough gas, and then in round two, he got finished on the feet. But boys, in this fight, I think the same thing is going to happen. I think he's going to try and grapple Asplund, and if he doesn't, he's just going to get picked apart on the feet. He's less durable because he's less big, and he can't take a punishment as well because he's not as big. You know, it's literally size is going to lose him the fight if he stays on the feet. And if he tries to grapple, we can't grapple him because he's too big. Now, at the end of the day, it is heavyweight. Sean's a big lad, even though I think he can be a weight class below. He still is a big lad. If he does get on top, I don't know if Asplund's going to be able to get back up. I mean, try having a heavyweight on top of you. Sometimes you just can't get back up. Go look at Chris Barnett's fight against Jake Collier. Sometimes you just can't stand up. You know, the guy's just too big. He's just too fat on top of you, you know? So, look, man, this heavyweight, if Sharaf ends up top, he could do something, but ultimately I feel like he's going to gas himself out going for takedowns, succumb to like a takedown of his own, probably fall over or get knocked down or something like that, and Asplund's going to end up on top of him like he was in his Contender Series fight and find a TKO from top position just like he did in his last fight. So I'm calling Asplund to get the win in this fight. In the next fight on the card, we have Tereza Bleda taking on Jamey-Lyn. Bleda coming into this fight with a record of 7 wins, 1 loss. Jamey-Lyn, on the other hand, 8 wins with 2 losses. The lucrative projected odds for this fight is going to be Tereza Bleda as a minus 200 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Jamey-Lyn coming back at plus 170. Now, this is not an easy fight for me to get a read on, and a lot of that comes down to the inactivity of Tereza Bleda. So she hasn't fought since 2023, back when she took on Gabriela Fernandez and she won via unanimous decision. It wasn't what it looks like on Tapology. It was a very tough fight. You know, she almost got finished in that fight. She got hurt very badly, especially in round 3, but she was able to get her grappling going, which is extremely dominant over almost everyone she's ever fought. Even in her lone loss against Natalia Silva, she had a lot of grappling success in round 1, even putting Natalia Silva in a choke there. And some may say that the future champion Natalia Silva was potentially saved by the bell in that one. So Bleda's very strong, very physical, very good grappling, and she displays it in every fight. I would maybe even put her as a bigger favorite if she hasn't been off for so long. I don't know why she was away from the octagon. She's been away for about 2 years, 2.5 years, I believe, boys. It was June the 17th, if I remember correctly, of 2023, and we're talking December 2025, right? So we're talking 2.5 years she's been away from the octagon, and she actually has had fights booked over the last couple of years. She had one earlier this year, which she pulled out of, and another one last year, which she also pulled out of. So she pulled out of 2 fights in 2 years and hasn't fought in 2.5 years. It's kind of a bad sign. You know, it's not great. You know, I don't like to see that from anyone, because it just shows me you're dealing with a lot of injuries. You've had a lot of inactivity. You may not be your 100% self coming into this fight. Meanwhile, on the Jamey-Lyn Horf side, she hasn't had injuries. Like, she's been fighting fairly consistently in the UFC and racking up wins as well. She even had a very close fight with Miranda Maverick, and Miranda Maverick, one of the top 15 girls in the division. So I think that says a lot while you know, Bleda hasn't even fought, you know. So I think that's going to be, obviously, that is in the favor of Jamey-Lyn Horf here. Jamey-Lyn Horf has been getting some good training in as well. She was one of the main training partners for Jasmine Jasudavicius's camp for her fight with Manon Fiorot. And I think that's a very good fighter to have in your corner and a good fighter to train with going up against Tereza Bleda. As I mentioned, Bleda is a very strong physical, basically pure grappler, pure wrestler. So fighting Jasmine Jasudavicius in the training room every day is obviously going to be beneficial if you're taking on a wrestler, because Jasmine, one of the best wrestler and grapplers in the entire division. Jamey-Lyn Horf is used to being the bigger girl, the stronger girl, because she is a very big and strong girl. I mean, you go back and look at the Vanessa Demopoulos fight, it was absolutely ridiculous. It almost shouldn't have been sanctioned, you know, just a size difference. Again, we did play Jamey-Lyn Horf round 2, round 3 there, and I honestly thought that was going to happen, you know, but Vanessa's extremely tough, and it's always tough playing women's MMA to finish. They go to decision a lot more than men's, but that's why we get massive prices and we're still very profitable on it. But yeah, she's usually the stronger and bigger girl guys. That's what I meant to say. And in this fight, she ain't going to be that. You know, Tereza Bleda can match her strength and physicality. I mean, I don't know. Someone will be stronger. I don't really know who it's going to be. But they can match each other's physicality. On the other hand, Bleda's used to be the bigger, stronger girl as well, you know? I kind of feel like Bleda's just so fucking strong that she's probably going to be able to take down Jamey-Lyn Horf. Jamey-Lyn Horf has had issues with takedown defense and a get-up game throughout her entire career against grapplers way worse than Bleda, to be honest. So I don't think Bleda's going to have much issue taking her down or even controlling her. On the feet, I give some edge to Horf, because Bleda just looks so rudimentary there and uncomfortable there, like she doesn't even train there. But she's only a young girl. I mean, she's 24 years old right now, and she took 2.5 years outside of the octagon, or took 2.5 years off from competing, right? Whether she did it intentionally or not, she still did take those years. So I mean, a lot of this tape that I'm watching on her, she's 20, 21, and maximum 22, actually not even 22, maximum 21 and a half. You know, she was 21 and a half when she fought Gabriela Fernandez. So boys, I'm expecting to see big improvements from this girl. You know, I'm kind of excited with her return. I think she's a legit fighter. I think she's very, very good, Tereza Bleda. She's extremely aggressive with her takedowns, very relentless, much like Gillian Robertson. She's tenacious, she's relentless, she's very stubborn, but she's way more physical, way more athletic, and I'm kind of excited for this performance. So yeah, I'm gonna say that Tereza Bleda comes out here and gets the win fairly confidently. I wouldn't even be surprised if my projected odds are wrong and she's a bigger favorite, but I'm kind of capping in the fact that Jamey-Lyn Horf looked good in her last fight. She looked good against Miranda Maverick, who's a very good fighter, and Bleda's been out for 2.5 years, so I'm kind of capping that in, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Bleda at minus 300 or something here, because she has proven herself in the UFC against some good fighters like Gabriela Fernandez, Natalia Silva, and Natalia Silva fight, she kind of got spinning back kicked in round 2, and she was doing bits in round one. You know, Natalia would always win that fight, in my opinion. But anyway, you get what I'm saying, boys. I think Bleda's a very good fighter, and I'm picking her to win this fight fairly cleanly. So that's it, boys. Genuinely, thank you. If you've been part of this show, I fully appreciate you, and I hope you can see that appreciativeness not just in my words, but in the amount of effort and work I put into these breakdowns every single week and come to give to you on this YouTube channel for free to hopefully help put money in your pocket. That's my way of saying thank you. If you've only even watched 2 of these shows, then hit the like button and hit the subscribe button as well. I would appreciate that, and that would be a good way for you to say thank you. It's a good relationship we got going here, boys. I put money in your pocket and you hit the subscribe button. Last breakdown of the year, so if this one loses, we'll just pretend it never happened, but that's all good, boys, because the year's been good anyway. Like I said, next week, I'm going to put out a lucrative MMA award show. So comment down below what awards you want to see me give out. The worst bet of the year, the best gambler of the year, whatever you want. I hope you're along for the ride, and I will see you very shortly. One last time, boys, let's cash this weekend. You can get all of my bets down below. Peace and love, boys. I'll see you next week.